Cooper Flagg is officially declared for the NBA draft. Even though he floated the idea that he'd stay at Duke, this was always the most obvious scenario, and now the process in evaluating him as a prospect begins. As the unanimous #1 prospect in this year's class, expectations are high on Flagg, and he's going to be expected to shoulder a big burden almost immediately, likely offensively and defensively. But what kind of player will the league be getting in Flagg? Is he truly the high-level prospect many are claiming he is, or is he overhyped compared to what his true value should be? Let's get into it. So Cooper came into this season as a bit of a question mark as a shooter, and saying that he vindicated those concerns would be a major understatement. Flagg ended the year shooting 38% from 3. What impresses me the most is his general improvement throughout the year. After his first 20 games, he was shooting 32% on the season. Still not awful, but also not someone you're terrified of giving him a shot to. In his last 14 games after February 1st, he shot 41% for the rest of the season. That is a knockdown shooter. There's really not a ton to critique about Flagg's jumper, and you'll find that that's a pattern with just about everything in Flagg's game as I go on with the scouting report. There's just not that much to critique. He's made noted improvement. His shot is nice, stable footwork, high release point, and consistent mechanics. Additionally, he's a really high IQ player, so you'll see him moving off the ball and getting himself in the right positions to have success as a spot-up shooter. I'd imagine you won't see him as a 40% three-point shooter as a rookie. He hasn't shown that level of consistency on a regular basis from behind the arc. But if he manages, say, a 37% mark from 3 as a rookie, you're going to be pretty happy to see that. A lot of what makes Flagg a great shot creator is his basketball IQ as well, mixed with his physical traits. He has a decent handle and has the ability to create a bit there, but his handle is by no means electric. He's not breaking down defenders with size ups or crossovers, but what he does do is utilize his quick first step to just blow by guys and finish at the rim. He's explosive in that way and is really one of, if not the most functional athletes in this draft, based on the combination of burst, strength, and explosiveness he has. Players really struggle to guard his shot creation simply due to the fact that if they're bigger, he's often quicker, and if they're smaller, he has the size to shoot over them. He's got that matchup nightmare quality you love to see with the best prospects, and the fact that he's shown consistent scoring production for himself at multiple levels of the floor at a high percentage indicates to me that he absolutely can be trusted with the ball in his hands as a player to create shots for himself. Between his creation for himself, his shooting, and his finishing is the aspect of his game that there were the least questions about coming into the college game. With his shooting, people wondered how consistent he would be. With his shot creation, people wondered if he was creative enough with the ball or had a deep enough bag. With finishing, pretty much everyone knew he was going to be a successful finisher at the rim, and he was. We saw this numerous times at the college level. Flagg can just get to the rim. People argue he needs to add strength to get his finishing to the next level. His strength is really not a concern to me in the slightest. He already looked like a man amongst boys at the college level a lot of times. He was legitimately 18 years old. Give him a couple years of natural growth and the NBA physicality and training programs, and he should be able to do a lot of the same at the NBA level. He's got great control attacking the basket, finishes well through contact, great touch, obviously can rise up and finish consistently. This is definitely his most plug-and-play offensive skill to the pros at this time. Cooper Flagg is also an intelligent, accurate passer. What I often say about players like Cooper Flagg is they don't really have to be just incredible passers to be considered a plus passer at the pro level for his position. He's not a primary playmaker for others. He's a primary ball in his hands, get a bucket type of player, or a guy who's set up by other playmakers. Another indicator of how good he is as an all-around prospect is simply the fact that he's a pretty solid passer. Doesn't do anything too crazy or spectacular, but his reads are solid, he gets the ball where it needs to be, and overall he isn't a negative when the ball is in his hands and he doesn't have anything to do with it. He just overall makes the right decision and often is the type of player who's making the players around him better because his gravity pulls in so much attention. And he's pretty solid at when defenses are overcommitting to him, getting it to the open player, and letting them knock down an open shot in that way. Like I said, he doesn't have to do too much as a passer, but what he does is pretty solid. While Flagg's most plug-and-play offensive skill is his finishing at the rim, his defense is probably his most pro-ready skill overall at this time. He's so versatile on that end, and it really makes him the perfect fit for any team. He's extremely switchable. He can guard realistically any type of player on switches. He's quick enough to hang with guards if need be, and while yes, he does need to bulk up slightly like I touched on earlier, he still has acceptable enough size and length to handle bigs reasonably if he was to get stuck on one for a time. He's instinctually very good and gets a high number of blocks and steals off of just his high-level defensive awareness and instincts mixed with his elite basketball IQ as a prospect. He should come in and immediately be a major force on the defensive end for whoever drafts him. I've seen a number of Flagg comparisons, and the three that make the most sense to me are Scottie Pippen, Pascal Siakam, and Andrei Kirilenko. He's not an exact match to any one of them, but if you pick out traits from each and then kind of combine those traits and put them together, you have something like what Flagg projects to be. I think the most common comparison I have seen is Kirilenko, and as a defender, it's actually pretty close. Kirilenko was a great versatile defender and put up great block and steal numbers, but on offense, he was never a first option level player, never really a second option level player. He was just an okay offensive player. I think Flagg definitely has more similarities to someone like a Pascal Siakam or a Scottie Pippen on the offensive end and on the defensive end too in some ways. He's a player who does a lot of things really well, works hard, solid athleticism and finishing, can get a bucket when he needs to. All this to say, yeah, with these comparisons, Cooper Flagg has a lot of strengths and not a lot of weaknesses. So, in conclusion, for Cooper Flagg's grade, I am grading him as the number one overall prospect in this draft, given a 96 overall rating on my rating scale. As far as NBA readiness, I think he's a high-level starter, borderline all-star from year one. As soon as he comes in, I think that he is an NBA player right now. I don't think he's going to have a whole lot of a learning curve. I think he's just ready to play. And then as far as ceiling goes, I think he's likely to be a perennial all-star, has a good chance of being a Hall of Famer if his career pans out correctly. So overall, in conclusion, Cooper Flagg is getting a lot of hype as a generational prospect, and in some ways, this has some truth to it. Is he the best overall prospect in a generation? No, I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination you could say that. When you're talking overall quality of prospects, taking into account potential to be a superstar, odds to be the best player in the NBA, everything that goes into being a draft prospect. Victor Wembanyama goes over him as a prospect. Victor Wembanyama is truly, by definition, a generational prospect, the best prospect since LeBron James in my eyes. Then when you look at the next level down, I think there's a good chance that within the past few drafts, if they were all put in the same draft, I think like Cade and Zion probably go over Flagg as well. Flagg is probably on the same tier as like Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero as a prospect in my eyes, with him probably being drafted above those guys as prospects if they were all in the same draft. But that's being somewhat team dependent. A team could realistically argue that they would go Edwards over Flagg or Banchero over Flagg or, vice versa. And I think you could make a realistic argument either way. What I will say, though, is what makes Flagg generational in a sense is his floor and his well-roundedness. He doesn't have really that one super elite trait like some of the other top prospects do, except for maybe his defense, but he's different because he really has no real weakness. You could nitpick things like his handle, but in all reality, it's not that much of a weakness. It's just if you had to pick something, that's what you'd pick. And in the things he's best at, he shows enough potential that he could eventually be considered elite at them at the NBA level. He's the most versatile top pick I think I've seen recently and could fit into legitimately any team or system immediately. And I think his bust potential is incredibly low. I think the scariest long-term realistic outcome for him would be the Spurs. I think he could play that elite second star option to Wemby. And with Fox there as well, you're looking at a team that could be winning legitimately multiple NBA championships in the not so distant future, if that's what ends up happening. Even if that's not where Flagg ends up, he's a major cornerstone of whatever roster he ends up on. While I don't see him ever as the best player in the league as an individual, I see him as a player who is consistently making all-star games, the perfect second option star for any ball-dominant number one on a championship contending team, and that's probably at a minimum. I think he can be the number one option on a team. I just don't know if that team is going to be a championship contending team, but who knows? I think his floor is incredible, and I think his ceiling could be very high as well. And to me, without a doubt, the top prospect in this draft as far as value goes. And with that, we wrap up today's video. Thanks to you all for watching and supporting this channel. If you found this video enjoyable or informative, I encourage you to give it a like and consider subscribing to this channel. There's a lot more draft-related content lined up that I'm excited to share with you now that draft season can be considered fully underway. I've fallen a little behind pace on when I want to be getting those videos out, but I want to get to a more regular schedule of uploading these scouting reports. So stay tuned for that, and generally just for more insights, prediction, and analysis. Thanks again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hey, thanks again for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you just saw, click on one of these videos here to see more.